Hey Music Junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. We want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, which supports our mission of keeping the music alive. This is the brand of glasses I'm wearing. You can choose your own frames, customize them online by clicking on the link below, send them right to your doorstep. Most of these frames are less than a vinyl record, and they have some really cool designs, cool colors, 80s colors. You gotta check it out. Now, we started a new show recently called The New Standards. Back in the early days of popular music, some songs were so powerful that they became true standards of the popular music canon. And I believe in the rock era, there have been a few of these songs. This show celebrates those masterworks in great detail. Today, we're gonna break down another great one. In 1985, the USSR and the United States were embattled in the height of the Cold War. Global citizens were frightened by the arms race and the ominous threat of nuclear war, perpetuated by the chest-pumping propaganda, really from both countries. The world's economy was obsessed with greed, the love of money for money's sake, and the ethos of wealth and power permeated through politics, pop culture, and it inspired the improbable creation of today's new standard. Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. Now in '83, Tears for Fears released one of the best albums of the entire New Wave era with their debut LP, The Hurting. Top to bottom, The Hurting was full of incredible songs. Pale Shelter, Mad World, Change, the title track, Memories Fade, Start of the Breakdown. It's such a great album. There was palpable excitement for the second Tears for Fears album, and expectations were really very high for the group's co-founders, Roland Orzabal and Curt Smith. They went back into the studio to work on new material for their encore with trusted producer Chris Hughes, who of course was so instrumental in making The Hurting such a masterful record. Now, TFF and the production crew were laboring on Shout. Shout, shout, let it all out. Shout was a track that they thought would be the last tune to record for their new record, but Shout proved to be a very complicated track that took months to record, and the sessions ran over time. While struggling to complete Shout, Orzabal played two very simple chords on an acoustic guitar, and it caught the attention of Chris Hughes and the recording team. Roland wasn't too keen on going through the trouble of constructing the song from his little melodies. He felt that it was too lightweight, especially too lightweight for the overall theme of the music that they were working on for this future album, the classic Songs from the Big Chair. In early interviews after Big Chair's release, he also said that the song didn't sound very Tears for Fears. That was another thing that was holding back a little bit. Besides, the marathon finish of Shout pretty much marked the completion of the record, and they were ready to go. It was Hughes who heard the song's raw potential and encouraged Orzabal to stay resolute and write lyrics for this song. Those simple chords that Roland played evolved into a sketched composition titled Everybody Wants to Go to War. But it was tough to come up with words that were compatible with that title. Orzabal solved the writing dilemma by lifting the line Everybody Wants to Rule the World from the first verse of Charlie Don't Surf by The Clash. And the tune flowed simply and beautifully with the change of that title. The borrowing of the lyric from Charlie Don't Surf for the title of Everybody Wants to Rule the World was not unnoticed by the legendary Joe Strummer. Love Strummer. He's one of my favorites ever. He, of course, wrote the Clash tune found on their triple vinyl manifesto, Sandinista, after the release of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Joe Strummer confronted Roland Orzabal in a restaurant, telling Orzabal that he owed him a $5. Love this story. So I guess Roland pulled out £5 from his pocket and he gave it to Strummer, ostensibly giving Strummer his cut of the royalties. So I guess the two had a good chuckle from the exchange, and man, can you imagine that? It would have been so fun to have been there to witness that. Pretty funny. Anyway, even though Everybody Wants to Rule the World was conceived in the mid-'80s against the backdrop of the Cold War, it has a perennial concern depicting the corruption that comes with an insatiable hunger for power. Welcome to your war and misery created by the oppression and the abuse of power, it was pretty much really the perfect song for that time. And it's pretty amazing that it took over the airwaves at the exact midpoint of the greed is good decade of the 80s. You think about that. Even decades later, I still think if you could only play one song from the 80s that defines the era, musically, lyrically, and most of all, emotionally, you would be hard-pressed to find anything close to as meaningful in that sense as this Tears for Fears composition. The lead vocal on Everybody Wants to Rule the World was delivered by Curt Smith, and really, it is the signature Curt Smith performance. The way he stacks that song is legendary. We will find you acting on your best. Despite the tune's serious subject matter, Curt Smith's vocal gives the song a glimmer of hope. And the Smith-Orzabal euphoric harmony in the bridge, that evokes an anthemic resilience that we must stay united to overcome this abuse. There's a room where the light won't find you, holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. Roland Orzabal also played the first jangly guitar solo on the track, while the second, heavier solo in the outro was executed by Neil Taylor on a Gordon Smith guitar, while then a member of Tears for Fears. The marching shuffle beat of Everybody Wants to Rule the World was influenced by the rhythmic repeating guitar chords on the intro of Waterfront by Simple Minds. You can really hear it. No one can deny the first 5 seconds of this song. It's so recognizable, and it instantly transports me, probably you as well, back to that wondrous time in 1985 when Marty and Doc were battling the bully Biff to get his parents together so that he could be born.
You've been looking for a
when Rambo was trying to right wrongs in Vietnam. There's a bunch of Goonies trying to save the town that was taken over or being taken over by greedy real estate developers.
Sorry, Dad. We had our hands on the future. We blew it to save our own lives.
Of course, a bunch of teenagers trying to save their own town from a Russian invasion. In fact, as I talked about earlier, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. This song really described the theme of 1985. It works for most of the pop culture moments of the year. New Coke, Skeletor trying to rule Eternia over He-Man, Live Aid, Nintendo, Mario trying to defeat Bowser to save the princess. All right, I'm going a little far here. You get the point. I'm just messing with you. I just wanted to repeat a lot of pop culture moments. But it was the song of 85, if not the entire decade. Everybody Wants to Rule the World dominated the airwaves in 85. It rose to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The feat is more notable because Tears for Fears record label Polygram insisted that Everybody Wants to Rule the World should be the lead single from the second TFF album, Songs from the Big Chair. The first single from the album in most countries, including TFF's UK homeland, was the track Mother's Talk, great song, followed by the elaborately onerous Shout. The band didn't really understand why the label was so adamant about having Everybody Wants to Rule the World be the first single in the US, since they weren't too high on the song to begin with. But Curt Smith and Roland Orzabal conceded that the label execs knew what they were doing since the song was such a monster success in the American market. And they were right. The band followed the chart-topping prosperity of Everybody Wants to Rule the World with a second number 1 single, when Shout reached the pinnacle of the Billboard Hot 100 in August of 1985, and it remained there for 3 weeks. That really made Tears for Fears the band of the year. Nobody was bigger in 85. I remember reading in a magazine at that time that there were a lot of people that, like Barbra Streisand, that was her favorite band. She said, and I quote, "They write great songs, but I guess I'm a little too old to record them." as if you needed any more proof that this song is a standard. I mean, you have one of the biggest singers in history who has interpreted really many of the early standards from the Tin Pan Alley saying this. TFF were so big in 85, they had a bunch of artists asking if they would write a song for them. Fleetwood Mac being one, Sheena Easton, Melissa Manchester. When I hear this song, it paints such a visual picture to me. I remember buying this tape in early summer 1985. I mean, I wore it out inside my Walkman, playing it on my boombox. Oh yeah, I remember I spent all my allowance on those huge batteries put inside my boombox so it would play without the cord. I mean, remember that? I swear, it took like 28 batteries to run that thing, and it only lasts for like 2 hours. But I remember I was playing soccer with my friends in this field, and I brought my boombox, and it was blasting from the sidelines, and I'd take a break like every 4 minutes and go back and rewind the song so I could hear it again. And I remember my crush and her friends were there on the sidelines watching us, and the bully of the group, there's always a bully, right? He was like, "Hey, geek boy, quit messing with your stereo. Get over here and play. I'm sick of this blank song." Of course, he used a gay slur. Just then, I'll never forget it, the girl that I had this crush on, she walked over to me and she smiled and said, "Adam, don't listen to him. I love this song. It's so boss. Keep playing it." She knew my name. Even better, she loved my music, my song. It was a beautiful moment. I mean, it was twilight, the sun was going down, breathtaking color of the sun converging on the mountains. Idaho is a beautiful place. The smell of 80s Giorgio perfume from my crush as she pulled on her jelly bracelets with Tears for Fears as the soundtrack of this. And she liked my music. Is there anything better? Anyway, Everybody Wants to Rule the World has a universal magnetism that stands the test of time, connecting with new generations of fans through prominent placement in pop culture. For example, the song was used in the 85 movie Real Genius with Val Kilmer, and it was at the very end. Puts the perfect exclamation mark on the film. I love that. And then in 97, Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, and then there was the use in the biopic about NWA, Straight Outta Compton, 2015, and of course Ready Player One in 2018. It's also been heavily used in TV, ER, Cold Case, Numbers, Malcolm in the Middle, many others. Weezer, of course, included a version of Everybody Wants to Rule the World on their collection of covers in 2019. Lorde recorded an interesting, darker interpretation of the song in 2013. I like TFF's better, of course, but that was on the soundtrack for the movie The Hunger Games: Catching Fire.
Welcome to your life.
And actually, Tears for Fears were opening their concerts with about 15 to 20 seconds of the Lorde version. It was pretty cool. My favorite use of the song is in that made-for-TV movie, Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates. It was a biopic, Pirates of Silicon Valley. Man, pulled that one out. It perfectly put like Anthony Michael Hall was Bill Gates, and then Noah Wiley portrays Steve Jobs. It was made in 99, I believe, and its show ends with that song.
Invention.
We have a contract, you and I.
Well, you should read it more carefully.
What is this?
In closing, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, though rooted in 80s production, it's that production, that the synthesizer part with the blazing guitar parts, that make this a haunting and mystical song. I mean, add in the vocals and the harmonies, and it's a treasure. The lyrics that have always stood out to me in a sea of truly meaningful and enduring words, it's really the last part. Say that you'll never, never, never need it. One headline, why believe it? Everybody wants to rule the world. All for freedom and for pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule the world. And now I'm wondering if I was dead wrong on what I said before. Do these words define 1985, or do they define the moment we're in right now? Join our community by subscribing below so you can get involved in the conversation about this. Leave us a comment about Tears for Fears and this life-changing song. Tell us your memories of the song. Now you can get Tears for Fears' incredible box set of songs from the big chair below. This is incredible. I own it myself. Every part of this is great. Click on our Amazon link below for that. Support us on Patreon for even more content. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.